this time salivating over the season. Sometimes if you haven't learned your lesson, you go hard betting on week one, and then we get ready to get into week 3 of the season going, what the hell were we talking about for a month leading into the season? Because everything we thought was the case was wrong. So I always tread a little lightly, and I try not to make these so definitive takes. Things can change very, very quickly, or maybe they have and we just haven't seen it yet.
The Lock Shop with Nielsen and Hustler. Weekday mornings at 11, only on EdmontonSportsTalk.com. Catch up with friends of EST, Andrew, Mike, and Kayla as they get you in the huddle with the Edmonton Elks on the Turf District. Thursday nights at 8, EdmontonSportsTalk.com. Friend of EST, Eric Thomas, takes you around the track all the way to the checkered flag on Raceline Radio. Tuesday nights at 8 and Saturday morning at 9. Only on EdmontonSportsTalk.com. Join friend of EST, Guy Flaming, for The Pipeline Show, Monday nights at 8 and Saturday at noon, as he has you covered with CHL, CJHL, USHL, NAHL, NCAA, and U Sports, plus the World Juniors, Frozen Four, and NHL Draft on EdmontonSportsTalk.com. Wake up with the Nielsen Show with Dustin Nielsen and Lieutenant Eric. Weekday mornings 6 to 9 on EdmontonSportsTalk.com. Get to know the winners, props, plays, parlays, and more with Nielsen and Hustler. Weekday mornings at 11 on The Lock Shop. Only on EdmontonSportsTalk.com. Tom Gazzola and Sean Bell take you on a hot lap around the NHL with Hello Hockey, Saturday mornings at 10, only on Edmonton Sports Talk. Join Murray McCourt and Curtis Stock for tips and tales from courses around Edmonton and area with the VIP Golf Show, presented by the Tailor Made Performance Center at the Ranch, Sundays at 8:30, only on EdmontonSportsTalk.com. The Elks Call is the newest Edmonton Elks podcast located in Edmonton, discussing everything Elks. Join friends of EST, Scout and Catherine, Friday nights at 8 on EdmontonSportsTalk.com. Don't feel like working? Join the Hangout. You never know what you might hear. Weekday mornings 9 to 11 on EdmontonSportsTalk.com. Welcome to The Lock Shop with Nielsen and Hustler, powered by Coolbet Canada.
It is 11:02 on a Wednesday, and welcome inside the Lock Shop, brought to you by our great partners at Coolbet. Dusty with you right now. Huss is going to be popping by in a little bit. He was just working on some stuff for Winnipeg Sports Talk today, but he will be by. If you are here today, you should be excited today because we are diving in to NHL futures today. This is going to be good. Basically, I know we're going to get into the Toronto Blue Jays, where we're at today on the Blue Jays. And we'll get into that, and there'll be a discussion there. But we have an NHL Futures episode. I've got a list of about, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 12 or 13 futures that I like right now over the NHL board at Coolbet. So we'll get into some of those. Huss has got a bunch coming his way as well. And there, look who it is. Huss, what's up, buddy? How you doing, man?
Sorry for the delay, fellas. I knew you'd be holding it down. Yeah, just finishing up. A lot of hype around this city for this big game on Friday night.
Oh,
We talked
yeah.
about it yesterday. Just had a chat with Derek Taylor, who'll be calling the game for our local radio station here in the Peg. So apologize on that. And yes, I am looking forward to discussing some of these NHL futures with you, Dusty. I'm
What?
hoping, I'm hoping that on tomorrow's show we'll be able to talk about one more Blue Jays game. That was excruciating yesterday, and it was in a lot of ways a microcosm of the entire regular season.
Thank you. I said this morning on the Nielsen show, I said the way the Jays lost that game should be exactly the way we expected the Blue Jays to lose that game with the way that their season is gone, right? I was like, that was their season in a nutshell.
You know, I mean, they got pretty good pitching throughout the game. I mean, obviously, Royce rocked Gosman twice. That was the extent of their scoring. And they just weren't able to put the hits together. I mean, Bo got a couple, but when they really needed it with the guys on first and second in the eighth, or when Vladdy was on second in the eighth with that leadoff double, just could not get him around. And again, a Blue Jays game not complete without at least one base running error. And of course, that cost them early when Bo got called out. So I don't know how are you feeling for this game today with Berrios on the hill against his old squad?
Our cool bet hotline of the day today was the under 7.5. Like, part of me with the way this season has gone, honestly believes that this thing's going out in a whimper, right? And if it does, I think it's probably because the bats are non-existent and there's more value on the under 7.5 than there is on the Twins to win this game straight up. So you can classify me as bitter Blue Jays fan right now if you want, after, the entire regular season going the way it was and the celebration for backing your ass into the playoffs and then coming out yesterday. And like you said, and how about Bo's comment after the game? So what are you thinking there? And he goes, well, I was thinking I'd probably be safe. It's like, come on, dude. It wasn't even like he was rounding third full go. He was kind of watching the ball and then decided to go once he got close to third. I'm just very frustrated with this team right now. So I'm getting on the under 7.5. That way, if they win, maybe it's a low scoring game and I'm able to cash that way. I just don't have a lot of faith in this group right now. I mean, Gosman yesterday, but he only allowed 3 hits. He talked about how his splitter was off, and you could see his splitter was off compared to some of those days when he's really wheeling and dealing. But I just feel like if they were going to take this series, man, they had to take advantage of a Gosman game, and they just didn't necessarily get it.
Yeah, and I mean, obviously, Gosman would wish that he had a couple of those pitches back early on, but other than that, he sort of steadies himself. He got some big outs when he needed it, as did the bullpen. I mean, the bullpen came in and did a heck of a job, and I will sometimes I'm loath to give John Schneider much credit because he makes me really nervous, and I just feel like he's always about to make a gaffe that's going to cost them. But I mean, they put some of their relievers into high leverage situations. They stayed in that game. But again, they just were not able to get the hits. And they're going to have to find a way against Sonny Gray today, and I hope that Berrios gets back into Target Field and has some good vibes where he was so successful during his time with the Minnesota Twins.
So how are you playing this one today? What are you going to do?
Well, I mean, listen, there might just be a straight heart bet, jump on the money line and hope that they win. It won't be a big one, I will tell you that. But I kind of don't mind what you just threw out with the under 7.5, and it's plus money too.
Yeah, it is. It is plus money.
Plus 102. So we go to there. And the funny thing was, I mean, Bo did get a couple of hits yesterday. I kind of feel like he's the guy that might have a big game, knowing that, he did make a big mistake yesterday, had a big opportunity, and it didn't come through late. I mean, he's the one guy that I kind of do have confidence that can step up maybe more than anybody else in the lineup. So maybe we'll jump on the total basis for Bo at over 1.5. But every run is going to be crucial. They do not want to get behind like they did yesterday. And those first 5 innings with the starters, I think, are going to be really crucial, because once you get to the bullpens, the way those pens were yesterday.
Yeah, not much going on there.
By the way, that closer on Minnesota, his name escapes me, but they were showing the fastest pitchers all season long. and Hicks had the second fastest average fastball at over 100 miles an hour. And then the guy that came in at the end for the Twins, his average fastball for the season was 101.9. And he threw a bunch at 102 and a few at 103 yesterday. But started out just coming up with curveballs. That I can't imagine what it's like to try to hit a 103-mile-an-hour fastball in a playoff game.
It's probably a bloody nightmare, I would think. Let's get to a couple of comments in the YouTube chat right now. And, of course, you can text us anytime here on the Lock Shop if you're listening live at edmontonsportstalk.com. And we've got a huge hockey episode coming your way right now. But 780-218-9999, 780-218-9999. Over on the chat, Big Uke, bullpen did their jobs. Gauze wasn't great, but it wasn't so bad that it lost us the game. The bats were dead again. The Jays can't win low scoring. The bats are either on or off. Marshall, watching the Blue Jays is like watching a slow-moving car crash. And then Chris already in on a ticket today. I put the Jays Twins under 7.5 with Mr. Lean's Man City win on a ticket. That's something that we've created on the Nielsen show now because, we'll do the Cool Bet Hotline of the day with Eric and I, and then Awanik, who's producing right now, sits over in the corner, and he doesn't make official picks usually because we do that, but he gives us leans. So now we've created this character, Mr. Lean, in honor of Mr. Clean, and it's going pretty well. So he actually... Both of his leans yesterday came in. He was leaning on Champions League stuff. So he was in today on Man City as well. So Chris was riding on that one. But in the whole sports world, man, a Mr. Lean character is pretty good. We were really happy when we came up with that today.
I'm here for Mr. Lean, especially if he can give us leans on things that I don't know enough about.
Yes, exactly.
The Premier League.
Yeah.
So, like I said, Huge, if you got any of those KBO parlays, let me know. If Mr. Lean's on Man City or Burnley or whatever of the clubs out there, I'm here for it. We're always here for
Somebody
it.
Somebody on the text line, 780-218-9999. Looks like this one comes in from Dash. He goes, because we were coming up with jingles today. Mr. Lean, he's a degen machine, which is good. There's a lot of fun ones that we're having fun with. So this is just the beginning. We told Maddie we want to get to a spot where we flash to him on our third camera here, and he's got a loose bald cap on. So he kind of looks like Mr. Clean, too, and we can really sort of brand it and build it up. Who knows? Maybe you see a Mr. Lean appearance on the Lock Shop at some point, too. So we'll see how that goes. Huss, by the way, quickly, I know you did mention you guys are obviously fired up in your city for this BC Lions-Winnipeg game. The line's moved slightly. Hey, it's at 1.5 now. Wasn't it at 2 yesterday?
Opened at 2,
yeah.
1.5 right now. I don't know whether it'll get all the way to a pick'em, but I think this is going to be, like I said yesterday on the show, I think if you want to bet the Bombers to win, the money line yesterday was the play. Let's just quickly see where that money line is at right now. Yeah, it was plus 112 yesterday, plus 105 today. I wouldn't be surprised if that actually comes, below even money and gets a little more even, a point, half a point. This is about as big of a pick'em as I think we've had on the card in a long, long time. And the stakes are so high for this one as well.
Oh, yeah.
But I kind of think that both Bomber fans, of which there are many, as well as just casual CFL fans that remember what the Bombers have done over the past number of 4 years, I think that's probably going to be where the lean is from most of the people betting on this game. So if you like the Bombers, I'd suggest getting them right now at plus 105 because I don't think that number is going to be getting back up anywhere close to where it dropped at plus 112 yesterday.
You know what's kind of interesting when you look at that game? The one thing I really like about this, the fact that the Lions are super legit this year, is that the Bombers will be playing meaningful games down the stretch. Having done Bombers games the last few years, those last couple of weeks, you're we'll see Drew Brown, and we'll see, and nothing against Drew Brown. I really like watching him play. I hope he finds a permanent gig somewhere in the league. But it'll be really good to see the Bombers and Lions both having to push down the stretch considering what's on the line, which is pretty exciting, I think, for the Canadian Football League.
Absolutely. Whoever wins this game, for all intents and purposes, clinches the West, but the job still isn't done. If the Bombers win, they would need to win one of their final 2 games or have BC lose one of their final 2 games to clinch the West. So it's not entirely done, but it pretty much is done We talked about it yesterday. This game almost worth 2 wins in the standings because you'll have a 1-game lead and the tiebreaker, as this is the true rubber match between the teams this season.
Ed Chuck on the YouTube chat says, Dusty hydrating early for the big night out tomorrow? I am hydrating pretty good. We have a Thursday night football party for the Bears and Commanders tomorrow at our NFL sponsor at Century Casino on Fort Road. So we're bringing the whole crew out, man. It's gonna be a fun night. Now, with that being said, we still all have to be on the air the next morning at 6:00. So we do have to be somewhat responsible. But I'm looking forward to kind of getting out and having a few drinks, buddy. Yeah,
dude, that's gonna be awesome. Yeah. Well, and speaking of a few drinks, how was the trip to the brewery? You guys are getting into the beer game. You gotta love it.
Yeah, if you're going to take over the world, you probably got to have a beer to do it along the way, huh? So, no, that Alley Cat Brewery's been great to work with, and then it's all set up nicely. Like, Alley Cat's brewing it, we're naming it, we're promoting it, and Sobeys is buying all of it and selling it in all the Sobeys and Safeway liquor stores. So, we were originally looking at running off like 250 flats. That number's already been bumped up to 350, and Sobeys is thinking they might be able to move like 1,000. So we'll see how it goes. So hopefully it goes really well. But I'm setting the over/under at 550 flats moved.
Have you guys been doing extensive tastings to make sure that the beers?
They're brewing a few different lagers right now, so we got to kind of take them for a little bit of a test drive and kind of find one that we like. So, it's good. We're working on the naming contest right now, and then the next 2 weeks will be the label creation contest. So that'll be fun too. So it's the beginning of something. I see the well, you are a big beer guy. I said I could see the Lock Shop being in like the whiskey business or something. Sit back with a drink and relax and watch your sports. We'll see what ends up happening there.
I'm here for all of it. But let's just say I'm quite excited to taste the EST brew that will be available. What's the time?
The timeline here is they're brewing it. Need a little bit of time to can it. December 1st is the projected launch date. We'll launch it. We're gonna have a little launch party final week in November with some VIPs and stuff. Then we'll launch it on the show Friday, December 1st, and then December's a huge time for hosting people and having parties, and I think we're going to be hitting the shelves at Sobeys at just the right time. So I think that's going to be good. And actually, Scott from Sobeys is on the YouTube chat right now saying Friday morning beer of the week could be tough after the night out. And he's right. It could be one of those mornings where we're like, ugh. But we'll make do. We'll make do.
You might need it. You might need it and a little bit more. Just kind of cruise right through the Friday show.
Yeah, Friday's going to be a long day because we'll have to hit all the shows. And then I have to literally somehow teleport to the airport for like a 2:00 flight. And then I'm going straight to Regina to set up shop to watch the Bombers and Lions game. So it's going to be a busy day on Friday. But I plan on sleeping in super late on Saturday, which is this is how I have to plan my I look on the calendar and mark 2 days a month where I'm like, I could get sleep that day. And Saturday's one of them. So
how long does it take you to get from EST to the airport?
Well, more time than I have, so I'm gonna have to. I think that might be a situation where old Mr. Lean there, Matty Wannick, might have to slide in on Oil Stream for a bit on Friday because I'm gonna have to get to the airport. I think I'm supposed to be on Oil Stream till 1. I think I'm supposed to board at 1:30, and it's at least a 45-minute drive from here down to the airport. So
yeah,
logistically, right now it's impossible. So.
Yeah, and for all you bozos that give Winnipeg a hard time for quote-unquote not having an airport, we in fact do have an airport, and your airport's in freaking Red Deer.
Yeah. You know what? The Winnipeg airport is much more convenient to get to than our airport. Yes, that's a fair point, Huss.
And yes, we do have one.
Yeah, chalk one up for you. Actually, I like your airport. It's
played out.
It's good. Your airport is like a big city airport, but a smaller airport. It's a real fancy airport. It's just not that big, right? It's 10 gates or something. But it's good. I like the lounge in there. It's nice. All right, Huss. So how much fun did you have diving into these NHL futures props? Because I just kept finding things I really liked. I just kept writing them down. I've got a dozen.
Okay, well, this is my problem. I've got a good 6 or 7, and I go through all these, and I'm comparing them to last year's numbers and thinking about projections for this year. And I realize I often will lean, I like the over on this. I like the over on this, the over on this. And then I go back to my theory that if we blindly bet every under because of injuries and whatnot, you'll probably end up ahead. So I'm in a very I'm in one of those difficult situations where the fun bets are the overs. I think there's a lot of numbers there where you can legitimately be pretty positive and excited that, they'll come through. But again, you just have to worry about the health of players. But I have found a few unders that I like. I went through the goals for a whole number of players, and now I'm actually looking at a bunch of the point totals as well. So we've got some pretty good ones here to get going, Dusty. Let's just quickly start with Connor Bedard.
Okay, yep, for sure.
I don't know whether we've got this one or not. The player goals.
I think he's at 31.5, but there's a couple of options there. I think he can get it at 32.5 too.
Which is weird. I don't know whether this is a mistake. Because if I look at Connor Bedard, total goals, over 31.5 is minus 115. Over 32.5 is minus 125. That doesn't make sense.
Yeah, that should be the other way around, right?
That's reversed.
Yeah.
Patty or Jake, if you guys are watching, you might want to swap that out. Definitely the bet is 31.5. I think he gets it. I think he gets it. And what are the Bedard points
It's 82-ish, I think, unless it's changed.
72.
It's 72. Okay, 72.
I honestly
72
think
seems pretty reasonable.
And again, can he stay healthy through the entire year? I mean, let's hope. But based on that, on a team that he is going to be, he'll be on the power play. He'll be the guy there, right out of the gate, even at the precocious age that he is. I mean, I could absolutely see a 35-goal, 80-point rookie season for Connor Bedard.
Did you just use precocious?
I did.
That's a lock shot first. We've been doing this for 2.5 years. I don't think I've ever heard you say the word precocious.
Every now and then I reach deep into the thesaurus to try to, change things up. We talk a lot, so
we do.
And then it was never a good time to use it. But Connor Bedard definitely would be in that category. Where are you on Bedard in this season?
To be honest with you, I've kind of stayed away from the Bedard things. I don't have him on my list right now. I do think, with Taylor Hall there, and I'm not looking at it from a mentorship standpoint. I'm just looking at it as somebody else talented to play with on the Chicago Blackhawks, which I think could probably help him and go a long way. So if I had to lean one way or the other, I think I'm going to side with a generational talent like Bedard is being billed and take the slightly over on both. I could see a 35-goal, 75-point season, and that would be outstanding. That would be outstanding for Connor Bedard. So I think I'd lean slightly over on both of them. Mind you, on two guys and a goalie, Matt Cassian continues to make this point. And I tend to take Cass's word for it, but he looks at it from a perspective, a view of Bedard, even so his shot and everything he does, even though he's not a huge guy, he's very physically advanced compared to a lot of those other junior players. Whereas in the National Hockey League, he won't have that great physical advantage. But with that being said, he's still got a ridiculous amount of skill. So I'd probably take him slightly over on both. But I don't think he storms in here and drops 90 points on us or anything like that, or leads the Blackhawks to the playoffs or anything ridiculous. But you said it, man. He's gonna be pretty much on their power play 90% of the time. And he's pretty wicked in those spots.
Oh, and listen, you talk about his shot. I mean, he right now on opening night of the NHL season will have a top 5 shot in the league. I mean, his release is different than just about anything that we've seen before. And that is going to, listen, he's going to light the lamp a lot. I wouldn't even mind. Listen, I'm going to take the over at the 31.5. But if we got a nice number, I would love to see what they would offer up for over 39.5.
Woo, baby.
Season. A 40-goal rookie season.
We can get that. We'll just ask for it. We'll get it.
Yeah. So anyways, that might be worth it because I have a feeling we can probably get above 2-1 on that. And I'll tell you what, it'll be a fun bet just to follow.
It would be above 2-1. I think we'd be better than 2-1.
I would hope
Yeah,
so. I would
think
so. Yeah, it probably would be. I have a hard
to
time
drop
kind
40
of
as a rookie, man. Like that would be, yeah, that would be pretty special. So,
while we're talking about goals and we're talking about the next one,
yeah,
what about your guy, Ovi?
yeah. What's
Speaking
his
of
number?
over,
I stayed away. Is
speaking of
it 40 and a half
over
or 39 and a half?
39 and a half.
Yeah.
Does Ovi get 40? How many does he need? Like, where are we at right now with the quest?
I think he's within. My Wi-Fi is being a little slow in the office right now, so I don't know if I'll be able to look that up quickly. But I think he's within. What's he within? I can't tell you. Let me just a sec. Let me see. But this guy scores. You know, we talked about this. I don't know if it was us or if I was brought it up on Two Guys and a Goalie when we were working our way through our top 50 players. But like last year, a lot of his other fellow offensive pieces were missing, right? Oshie, Backstrom, Wilson, they all missed a ton of time. The dude still sleepwalks to 40.
Yeah.
He just does. So I would be on the over 39 and a half, especially with some of those other pieces healthy. I'm not sure that leads to a huge Washington Capitals bounce back, but if you look at that core, man, they've won the Stanley Cup. Part of their focus might just be getting Alexander Ovechkin to this record as quickly as possible, and they'll be force-feeding him even as much this year as they have the last couple of years. So I would be on Alexander Ovechkin over. I also saw a cool bet. You can get Ovi versus Bedard head-to-heads. I don't know if you saw that, but in some of if you look at the player goal section at the bottom, it'll say head-to-head goals, and then at the bottom head-to-head points. And I think there's Bedard, Ovi, and I don't know if it's on goals or if it's on the points, but I did see a Bedard, Ovi head-to-head.
I'm looking at there's Barkov, Bedard, which is even on both sides. Ovechkin and Braden Point. We've got the I don't mind this one. I'll probably ride with my guy Kyle Connor against me because it's Zibanejad at -110 to -105. Matthews versus McDavid, which is another cool one. And Mikko Rantanen versus Tage Thompson. So
that was that the goals? Was that the goals?
Yeah. Most goals in regular season.
Maybe it's the points I saw that. I thought for sure there was one with him and Ovi. Maybe it was in the points. But I don't know. Are you at this stage of his career going to fade Alexander Ovechkin on a goal scoring prop?
Oh, hell no.
Okay.
Oh, hell no.
Okay.
No. And I mean, like you said it, 40 goals in his sleep.
Yeah.
Well, the total is 39 and a half. I don't expect him to really slow down. And I mean, the guy's a warrior, seems to play pretty much night in and night out. And he needs to. And we know what he's doing. He's trying to get this record. He's at 822 right now. Gretzky is at 894. So he's 72 away. So he's got to get 40 plus this year. And then it puts him in a position to next year with just over 30 goals to become the all-time NHL goal.
That happens next year. It's a done deal. There's no way he doesn't score that many goals in the next year and a half. It's just
I love though Bedard versus Ovi for points.
Yeah, because that's an interesting one because
I mean, Ovi's points is 75 and a half, and Bedard's
72 and a half, right? So
is 72 and a half. So I mean, I guess by the bookies, they say it's Ovechkin, but the line's even. The line's -118 on both sides. But why don't you? I know you got a whole bunch of things.
I do have
ready
a bunch.
To roll.
I've got some teams. I've got some awards. I've got some goals. I've got some points. Like, is there anywhere you want to kind of, should we just kind of work our ways through the categories? I think I've got something from basically every single category that you can get right now over at CoolBet. So,
perfect. Well, let's save the teams for the end. So let's go to roll through some of your player props right now that you're liking.
Okay. Well, first of all, I locked these ones in 3 weeks ago, but I'm over on all the Bouchard props and all the McDavid props. So if you want to get on that, we can definitely go there. As far as player props, let's start with the goals. These are some guys that I like. Jason Robertson, over 41.5 goals. I think I don't think we've seen peak Jason Robertson just yet. I think that's a Dallas team that has some really nice offensive pieces in the top 6, with he kind of being the front runner of all of it. So I like Robertson over 41.5 goals. I also like Matthew Tkachuk over 39.5 goals. Kachuk's just so damn deadly, man. I think his point total's at like 104 or something, but I see Tkachuk as a 40-goal guy this year. So I got on Tkachuk over 39.5 goals. There's another guy here that I have over 39.5 goals, but I can't read his name right now. It starts with an M. Who else would I have had that has a total of 39.5? I was marking these down. Let me just see here. I can do the M's. Kachuk.
McKinnon?
Oh, yeah, Nathan McKinnon, 39.5. That's it. So I have Kachuk and McKinnon. They're both at 39.5. I'm going to take both of those guys over on the goal totals. Then I've got some point totals as well. I like this one. Jack Hughes over 97.5 points. The guy's an absolutely offensive wizard. You can get him at 97.5 right now. So I'm going to hammer that one. So
that's on my list as well.
Yeah.
That was a highlighted one. He had 99 last year.
Yeah.
Jersey is stacked. And I mean, I know we don't see a lot of New Jersey. They don't make the national games very often. I mean, you really have to sort of seek out New Jersey to find them. But man, I mean, that team, and they brought Myers now there. They re-signed Bratt. They've got a real solid blue line that can get but Jack Hughes, I mean, if you haven't seen him, he's turned into a legit superstar, the guy that they thought they were getting. I had my doubts on
when
him.
he first broke in. You're right. Yeah.
Well, you know what? As the number 1 overall pick, I'm like, is this guy really going to be a star? Well, he has answered that in all caps. The answer is yes.
Well, and I like what they got in Jersey too, because I got Jersey on some other props here that we'll get to as we work our way through this one. But yeah, so I got Hughes over 97.5 points, and then I'm not getting too much on the Montreal Canadiens, but I do like Suzuki over 63.5 points. His last 2 years have been 61 and 66. I feel like he settles in here somewhere in the 70 range this year. And he's also a guy who's stayed healthy. He's played 82 games each of the last couple of years. So I think you got that going for you when you're looking at some of these over props as well. So from the player props perspective, Robertson over 41.5 goals. Kachuk and McKinnon both over 39.5 goals. Hughes over 97.5 points. And Suzuki over 63.5 points. And that's where I'm at on the player props. And I got about a half dozen team props mixed in here as well.
Let me here. I'm going to fire off a few of these, a few of the ones that I've got right now. With you on Jack Hughes, Connor Bedard over goals at 31.5. Here's an under. Claude Giroux, 26.5 with Ottawa. I'll be honest.
I'm glad you brought that up because I looked at it and I said, well, that's got to be an under, but then I never went and dove into it any further.
I couldn't believe it. He scored 35 last year for the Sens. Now, he's 35 years old. And listen, I think that might have been a little bit of an aberration. I think they had a bunch of guys that were out, and he maybe played more than he would given a lineup. But to me, that team is just like, it has matured another level. And I mean, to me, we're going to see way more Stützle, way more Brady Kachuk. They expect to have Josh Norris in at some point, and he very well could be part of that number 1 power play. It just seemed like an outlier season for Giroux last year with the Sens. I think they got more depth. I think they won't need to lean on him as much. And frankly, I don't think they should lean on him as much at the age of 35. So I am going to take the under 26.5, but I will give him credit. I was stunned when I went back and realized that he scored 35 last year for the Ottawa Senators. That being said, I don't expect that to happen again. I'll take another under from Minnesota Wild, Kirill Kaprizov. Kaprizov's goal total is 46.5. Is he capable of doing that? Absolutely he is. But here's the thing, Dusty. I don't know. I mean, right now, they've got Ryan Hartman as the top center.
Yeah.
Joel Eriksson Ek is the top center, but he's playing with Boldy on that second line. And even if Eriksson Ek is in that number 1 spot, he's a great two-way player and does awesome things in his own end. I mean, he's a guy that you definitely want on your team and he'll help you win. I'm not sure they've got the offensive juice to complement a player like Kaprizov to hit a lofty total like that. 40, sure. 47, I don't know. I'm taking the under on Kaprizov for that total as well. Continuing down this list, Quinn Hughes. Quinn Hughes' goal total is 7.5.
We had Richard Croft mention this like 9 times this week. He goes, "I put my entire account on Quinn Hughes over 7.5 goals." But did you look it up? I mean, he's only scored 7, 8, and 8 the last 3 years. But there's got to be a double-digit goal season coming, right?
Listen, he's now the captain of the team. He's in his absolute prime. He'll be a big part of that power play. I mean, his point total is still in excess of 70.
Yeah.
But listen, I mean, that's a goal every 10 games. He plays so much. He's going to be in all those high leverage positions. We're going to take the over 7.5 on Quinn Hughes. Also going to take the over on Cale Makar. I'm surprised his total points isn't higher. It's 80.5. I mean, Cale Makar, to me, is
that's
a
nice
point
one.
game,
Yeah.
point a game player all day long. Again, he's got to play the games and avoid injury, but I don't have a lot of concern with Makar's ability to get to that number. We talked about Jack Hughes over 97.5. And here's one for the Jet fans out there. Josh Morrissey. And Josh Morrissey, who had that breakout season last year, is now, the clear number 1 player on the Jet blue line. And he's coming off a 76-point season. So, I mean, his total's 56.5. I mean, I get that might be a career year for him, but trust me when I tell you this, Josh Morrissey's going to be playing 22, 23 minutes a night. He'll be quarterbacking a Jet power play that still is going to have the likes of Mark Scheifele and Kyle Connor on it. I have a hard time imagining that, barring any sort of major setback, that Josh Morrissey doesn't smash this. I mean, again, we're talking about a number that's 20 points less than what he did last year. He was basically a point-a-game player last year. So JMO is getting the love at 56.5 on the over. And just while we're talking about player points, Mark Scheifele, while we're on the Jets, I believe Scheifele's total is 75.5. And his goal total, and keep in mind, Mark Scheifele had a career year last year with 42 goals. He'd never got to that point before. And I believe he's in at 45. Where the heck is Mark? Yeah, 35.5 for this year. It actually probably lean the under for Mark. I mean, he's usually a guy that you can count on for 30, 31, 32. And I guess there's also the question as to whether he finishes this season as a Jet, how things go in the meantime. I think the points over is safe, but I do think that goal total is a little inflated based on what happened last year, which is a bit of an outlier over the course of his career. What do you got for some of that other stuff as far as the teams?
Yeah,
totals.
I've got. Let me see here. I got a couple division winners. I got a Vezina sprinkle that I probably will get on, and then I've got 3 team totals that I can get to. So let me give you the team totals here. Actually, no, let me give you we're talking players right now. Let me just stick to this. I am going to get on, and he let me down at times last year, but I don't hate Jake Ottinger at 11-1 to win the Vezina. Now, he's not far down that list, but there's 3 or 4 goalies ahead of him, and I just think he's in a spot on a really good team. As far as much of a workhorse as you can get in the National Hockey League nowadays, I think Ottinger can get that type of run. And if Dallas ends up, winning the division and Ottinger wins 35 games and has a 925 and a 210, then I think there's a pretty good case to be made here for Jake Ottinger at 11-1 compared to some of the guys ahead of him on that list. So, kind of the one award probably. When the other ones, it's like McDavid, Makar. You're gonna tough to find everybody else. I do think that Vezina would kind of still be wide open, and we see that from year to year. Like, who would have picked the guy who won it this year last year at this time last year? It just wouldn't have happened. So, I am going to get an Ottinger here at 11-1 right now, I think.
Well, you know what? And listen, I love that bet because you need to be on a team that's good.
Yeah.
Listen, Connor Hellebuck did win when he was just such a massive part of all of the Jets' success and every one of those underlying numbers and advanced stats showed that the rubber and the quality of shots he'd been facing were far greater than everybody else in the league, and he got that love. But more often than not, it's kind of like last year in Linus Ullmark, a guy that plays on a good team, that has consistent numbers, that plays a lot throughout the year. Like, I'm not sure Sorokin, Saros, Hellebuck, I'm not sure that those guys who were the favorites win enough games. Like, I don't know if Nashville or the Islanders or the Jets. I mean, I certainly can't count on that. I think the Rangers will be pretty good, and I guess Shesterkin at 6-1. But, you know, considering it's 11-1, Dallas, I think a lot of people are expecting to take another step forward this year. And Ottinger's already established himself as truly one of the NHL elites. Not a bad pick to win that trophy.
Yeah, I like that one. And then the team totals I've got, I am on the Oilers over 107.5 points. You mentioned a few weeks ago. I mean, if there's one team that we could identify as a juggernaut, or that could possibly be a juggernaut in the NHL this year, it could be the Oilers, especially if they get solid goaltending. So I do like Edmonton over 107.5 points. By the way, as of this moment here on October 4th, a week away from the beginning of the NHL regular season, or just under a week away, the Edmonton Oilers are now the Stanley Cup favorite at CoolBet at plus 825. I think it's Colorado or Carolina right behind them. So I've got the Oilers over 107.5 points. I have the Devils over 105.5 points. They had 112 points last year, and I know, as Huss mentioned, I mean, they just have. I mean, if they get goaltending, and I know they lost a couple of veteran defensemen, but they got some young guys who could end up being even better. I'd like the Devils for over 105 if they can get some solid goaltending. So New Jersey over 105.5 points, and then I am going to take the Coyotes under 77 points. I think it's at, or 77.5 points, whatever that number is on the Coyotes. I will take them under the number this year. I think they were around 70 last year, and I don't see the Coyotes all of a sudden being a lot better, Huss. So I'm going to get on the Coyotes under the 77 number.
Yeah, the Coyotes. I'll be honest, I didn't spend too much time thinking about the Coyotes, but you can never go wrong with a nice little under on the Coyotes. How about the Ducks? 66.5 is their point total. That is ugly. And where's the Sharks here? 66.5 for the Sharks. There's a prop bet. Who will be worse, Anaheim or San Jose in the Pacific Division next year? Here's a couple overs of teams that I'm really high on. I think at least one of these teams gets in the playoffs, and it wouldn't shock me if both of them do. Buffalo Sabres over 88.5.
I like that.
A lot of it will come down to whether they can stop the puck. We'll see what Devin Levi can do early on, whether they add to it. But to me, that team is just on the verge of, and I think with a great start, they can be in the mix all year long. The other team that absolutely needs a great start, that I think has similar aspirations in the East, is the Ottawa Senators. And listen, they've got a new owner. I think the realization that the time is now for this group to step forward. I mean, everyone's got their contracts. They're all there. I think they've got one of the best young captains in the league in Brady Tkachuk. Stützle, Korpisalo's look great so far. I think he'll be a nice add as long as he can, give them average to better than average goaltending. So Sens over 92.5. And when we get into, I would imagine they'll probably have playoff odds. I don't see them, it's just an actual number to make the playoffs. Both of those teams will be plus money, but I think I'll probably have a little sprinkle on both.
Okay, I was going to say, I'm not sure there's room for both of them in the postseason. If you had to just pick one to have that year, who would you lean to?
I mean, I guess Ottawa. And I mean, listen, their total's 4 points higher. So I mean, I guess the books would agree with on that.
I think I might side. Mind you, Ottawa's got a great blue line too. I was gonna say, with Power and Rasmus Dahlin, I don't know how you can top that, but I do like what Ottawa's got going on there too. I mean, they're two teams in very similar spots. You made a great case to lay it out for both of them. I'm just kind of curious which way you'd go.
Well, I know the Leafs are going to be in the playoffs. I think the Bruins will be in the playoffs, but man, that team is.
Yeah.
I mean, there's big questions about Boston. Tampa was going to be without Vasilevsky for the first 2 months of the season.
Good point. Good point.
So, I mean, these are teams you just assume that are already there. Like, I don't think we can just assume to put an X next to a bunch of those normal teams. Pittsburgh and Washington both missed the playoffs last year. Like, will they be back?
Well, Pittsburgh tried. I mean, Pittsburgh went out and got Carlson. Like, they're trying to be back.
Yeah.
And I don't necessarily know where Washington's at. So
they certainly are. Carolina, put an X by them. They definitely will be there. I have no doubt about them. And obviously the New York Rangers.
New Jersey,
as well.
New Jersey's there.
New Jersey's in. Like, I will place an X beside Toronto. I will place an X beside New Jersey. I will place an X beside Carolina. Guaranteed those three teams are in the playoffs. But I do think there's going to be more intrigue. And I think those teams below them are just better now. And I think that I think it's going to be really, really exciting in the East. And again, the Jets, what a confounding team. I mean, their total is 94.5, which basically puts them like right on the playoff line. You might make it with 96. You might miss it with 94.
What they have last year? Were they 95 last year? Did I see that correctly today? Off the top of my head, I
think they were 97.
97. So are they?
Were 97.
Are you guys? I don't know. I mean, I haven't been diving in enough to the Jets. We'll have to maybe have you on here to kind of get into it a bit on our show. But like, I like the trade. Like, I like the trade that they made. I thought it was a really good deal considering the spot they were in. Are you expecting this team to be like, is there a drop off here, or are people expecting them to be better because of the deal they made? Like, what I have no idea what to expect from this team.
Dude, I talk about this team for hours every day, and I have no idea.
Yeah.
Like, to be perfectly honest, this team might be the most interesting in the entire league going into this season for a number of reasons. But with the uncertain futures of Hellebuck and Scheifele, whether in particular Hellebuck can be re-signed and kept around, or whether they move them, they say that they're all in. They say that this is a team like they're here to win this season. So maybe that means they keep those guys. If they do that, I think the chance of being a playoff team obviously go up. But the Winnipeg Jets' fate, I think in a lot of ways, is going to be determined in the first 25 to 30 games of the year. Like, if they go out and they look like a team like they did last year, like one of the top teams in the West.
Yeah, they started well.
If you recall, they were first place in the West in January of last year. And then had a big drop off in the second half of the season. If they have a great start, I mean, the range of possibilities for Winnipeg goes from being like 5th or 6th in the league to 30th, to be honest. Because if they have a bad start and things don't go well, then I think there's a real possibility that, the team acknowledges where they're at, the situations that they're in, and starts moving some of those players and kind of leans more into their younger guys. I know that's not their plan, but I think that they may be forced into a pivot in and around the 23 to 30 game mark. So I'm staying away from that over-under right now. I think the possibilities of it being an under, they're a much deeper team right now. I don't think there's any doubt with getting the likes of Iafallo and Velarde in. I mean, half the team is sick. It's probably COVID going through the dressing room or something right now. I know everyone's getting it again. So, but you don't want to start slow. Nikolai Ehlers has missed all of training camp again. He won't be playing in the preseason game tomorrow. And Cole Perfetti, I mean, what's he going to do? By the way, Cole Perfetti, is he on here? That is one player that if you are looking for, we'll have to get that done up. I'll have to make a request because Perfetti's in a really interesting situation. He hasn't been able to be healthy for the last couple seasons, and we could put Nick Ehlers. Nick Ehlers is always under every year because he just doesn't play enough games. But Perfetti is moving in and getting the first crack at that number 2 center position with the Winnipeg Jets. Ehlers will be on the line, and they're going to start off with Nino Niederreiter, who scores 20 goals in his sleep each and every year. And they've also got Alex Iafallo that can move up and move down in that position. Like, Cole's in a great spot to really see a big, big bump, if he can hang on to the job right now. The problem is we haven't been able to see that line together throughout the preseason because Ehlers hasn't been able to play. So there will be a little bit of trial by fire for Perfetti, but we'll get that up on CoolBet, and we'll kind of touch on that on Winnipeg Sports Talk over the next few days.
2 things here that I've got left. Edmonton Oilers to win the Pacific, plus 180. and the New Jersey Devils to win the Metro at plus 250. Now, that would mean they would have to top Carolina in the regular season, but I do think they're capable of that. Like, maybe Carolina gets to a spot where it's like, we've had really good regular season teams for a while. Let's focus on a few things. Might not put up as many points in the regular season, but go deeper in the playoffs or something along those lines. So, yeah, I like New Jersey to win that division at plus 250. And then the Oilers get some value on them in the Pacific at plus 180.
Yeah, I don't mind the Oilers, I think. Although it's so much about the playoffs. And the Oilers know that as well.
Yeah.
Like, if it's coming down at the end and they've got the ability to rest some guys or whatever, or win and get first, like, does that extra home game matter that much to them?
I think you'd rather play a game 7 at home than on the road in Vegas or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, right? Like
No, I think that makes sense. Oh, by the way, I did forget one total. Give me the under on Philly, 73.5. It's going to be another long year in the city of brotherly
that's a good one, too.
love.
I like that one. It's never bad to take the under on all these real shitty teams, And we'll see where it plays out from there. What's coming up on Winnipeg Sports Talk today, Huss?
Well, we are going to be talking to Greg Wyshynski.
Oh, we had Wyshynski on this morning. We spent he joins us every Wednesday now, and he you have to bring it up with him because I don't know so we had him on. I've had Wyshynski on for like 12 years every single week.
Yeah.
And he just realized today that here in Canada, all of our hamburger meat comes the same way, cooked. Like we talked about it for like 8 minutes. I don't know how we got onto the idea of it. I think we were talking about Hamburger Helper, and then he's like, well, you get the medium rare. And I was like, you don't know that this is how it works up here? He was stunned. He goes, I've been on Canadian radio shows for almost 20 years. He goes, I never knew you guys didn't do your medium rare burgers up there like we do down in the States. So
I get freaked out when people ask me how I want a burger.
Thank you.
Done.
Exactly. So do I, man. That's what I said to Greg.
I'd like it cooked, please. Yeah. Cooked. Rather freaking hamburger meat. Like, what are we doing here?
So Wyshynski will be on. He just dropped all of his predictions. He's picking the Oilers to win the Stanley Cup. So if you like,
hey, listen, I mean, as I said, I was the one that gave us the Leafs Oilers Stanley Cup final prop, which is just created since we got it out at 40-1. But I do, and Connor McDavid is, I mean, even money, but borderline free money to win the Hart Trophy again.
Yeah.
Connor Bedard. Maybe we can get a.
Let's do an awards parlay. Yes,
exactly. Bedard, Calder, McDavid, Hart, and do we want to put Cale Makar?
I was just going to say Makar Norris, and that's just like the front runner awards parlay, basically.
Yeah. The chalk trophy hat trick parlay. Makar, McDavid, and Bedard. And then pray that those guys don't get hurt. But yeah, I mean, it's all there at Coolbet. There is so much waiting for you. But yeah, look at that Oilers number. I will say this. I think the Nasties are a big part of why the Oilers are at 8.25. Like, poor Coolbet. We maybe should be cheering against.
If the Oilers win the cup, our agreement with Coolbet might be over, buddy. I'm not going to lie.
It might bankrupt the company. I mean, I think there's enough. I mean, the fact that the Bouchard number has gone up 12 points since it launched. I mean, all those things. I think it says it's a pretty interesting thing. Enjoy the baseball game this afternoon. Yeah. Fingers crossed we can be talking about game 3 this afternoon.
All right, there we go. That's us. Winnipeg Sports Talk coming up. That'll do it for the Lock Shop today. Thanks for joining us. All right, what's going on, everybody? Welcome inside the Fantasy Football 5. If you're listening right now at EdmontonSportsTalk.com, hit us up, 780-218-9999, 780-218-9999. What do you need help with in fantasy football? Actually, I've got some things from the Nielsen show still kicking around that we can certainly get to as well. If you're watching on YouTube right now, make sure you stick around at the end of the Fantasy Football 5. We are going to slide you right on over to the oil stream with myself and handsome Tom Gazzola, and we'll be hitting you up live right here from the Popeyes Louisiana Kitchen studio as well. What do you need help with in fantasy football this week? We'll get to a little bit of that. I got a couple of I guess we can call them sort of stashes. We could probably do that. Oh, I just got a text from Tommy. Coming in hot. Tommy's whole life in a number of different directions is coming in hot. So anyway, Tommy will be rolling in at some point on the oil stream today, which should be a lot of fun. Speaking of a lot of fun, if you would like to join us, the Fantasy Football 5 today and every day, and everything we do with the National Football League here at EdmontonSportsTalk.com is brought to you by our great partners over at Century Casino, Fort Road, in the new sports bar and lounge there. Lieutenant Eric is gracing them with his presence every Monday and Thursday night. And this Thursday, that is tomorrow, we'll have the entire EST crew down there. We're expecting a bunch of listeners to be rolling in as well. We'll be there for the Commanders and Chiefs, and really the only way you want to watch a Commanders-Chiefs game is with a bunch of other people and actually have a good time doing it. I can tell you right now, from a cool bet perspective, I will be hammering the over 3.5 field goals. And that way, every time there's a field goal, we can all just lose our mind cheering. And the entire casino is going to think we just hit double zeros on the table, which would be absolutely outstanding. So if you do have any fantasy football questions here on the Fantasy Football 5, hit us up right now at 780-218-9999 or in the YouTube chat. I've got a couple of stash candidates that we can certainly get to. And I still have a few of those questions from earlier in the day that we can get to as well. Jamie Thomas will not leave me alone. He said again yesterday, he's trying to get me to trade C.J. Stroud for Deshaun Watson. And so he sends me one offer. I reject it. He ups the pick that he's offering me by 8 rounds. He went from the 11th round to the 4th round and goes, will the 4th rounder do it? I said, no. He goes, well, what's it going to take? I said, I don't want Deshaun Watson. I've got Deshaun Watsons in 2 leagues. I don't even want him in those leagues anymore. So why in the world would I trade in a keeper league C.J. Stroud for Deshaun Watson? It doesn't make any sense. And I know a lot of you are probably being hammered with ridiculous trade offers at this time of year as well. You know why? Because there's some teams there that are sitting around at 1-3 right now, and they're in full-blown panic mode because your odds of making the playoffs at 1-3 aren't great, but your odds of making the playoffs at 1-4, not happening at that point. You'd have to get on an all-time run to make that work. So I can see why it's desperation mode right now. Old Gil is in. Gibbs is Swift in Detroit. Finkel is Einhorn. Einhorn is Finkel. My God, Gibbs is a man, basically is what he's saying there. I don't know if you can really be surprised by this. That's why I loved drafting David Montgomery at the value that we were getting David Montgomery. And he was in like tier 3 or 4 of running backs. Gibbs was going early 3rd round. You could get Montgomery late 5th, early 6th. It was an absolute no-brainer. I've got Montgomery on a handful of teams. And if you look at the way that they use, and he makes a good point, Gibbs and Swift, if you look at the way they used Swift in Detroit and used Jamal Williams, then you just have to look at David Montgomery as Williams and Gibbs as Swift. And I know they put the draft capital on this guy, and you go, okay, no, this guy ain't be 3 down back. Not when David Montgomery's there. And they'd already had David Montgomery when they drafted Gibbs, I believe, which is why I was very surprised at the time that that's how it ended up working. But you're right. I mean, that's a pretty good comparison. Dusty, what would you do with Debo this week after 0 targets last week? You roll him out again or sit him? I roll him out again. I mean, Debo's always got week winning potential. I would have to also know, Chris, if you can hit us up quickly, because it's the Fantasy Football 5, not the Fantasy Football 15. That being said, Tommy's coming in hot, so we might be able to extend it a little bit today. But I need to know, whenever you send in a question about what should you do with a guy, it really comes down to what your other options are, right? So you have Debo. I would say pretty much 90% of the time, Debo Samuel's still going to be a must-start for you. His value has taken a significant hit since they brought in Christian McCaffrey. I'd probably try to move Debo to somebody that's going to be more targeted, like a safer play as opposed to the upside play that Debo can be sometimes. Judy and Atwell are on my bench this week. I'd start Debo. I think I'd still start Debo in that situation. Big Uke is asking Akers or Hubbard. Well, Akers kind of had flashes last week, didn't he? Hubbard's been getting more of the snap share, though, with Sanders banged up. I can see why you're in a tough spot here. I'd probably say Hubbard just because I still don't know if I can confidently give someone advice to actually start Cam Akers in fantasy. But the Akers one would be something that you'd probably want to look for. Just keep tabs on right now. Let's get to a dynasty league question. Ooh, I love when we get fantasy football stuff. Call Tommy. Oil stream canceled today. We're going to keep rolling with these. 780-218-9999. This one's in from Ducky. Would you trade Adams for Judy, Akers, and a second in a dynasty league? Man, why does Akers have to be in there? Is there not another player that you can get in the dynasty league? Stop sending in Akers questions. I don't want these Akers questions. I think, if you can get something a little bit better than Akers, I still really like Jerry Jeudy. Second rounder in a dynasty league comes with some pretty significant value. And I think we all know that Adams' best year, there's still good years here, but his best years are probably behind him. If you're in a spot where you don't think you're going to win with the roster that you've got built around Adams right now, I would probably ask for Jeudy and a first and forget about Akers, or just try to get an upgrade on Akers with another player. Hey, Dusty, I got Joe Burrow on fantasy and Brock Purdy on the bench. Who do I play? I think at this point you have to play Brock Purdy. You can have no faith. None at all whatsoever in Joe Burrow. None. Bryce Young, upside or no? Yes, there's upside. But in a dynasty fantasy football league, I would much rather have Richardson or C.J. Stroud. And it's good because in some leagues I have C.J. Stroud. In our keeper league, I've got Richardson, who will certainly be a keeper for me moving forward. That's that 16-team league that we're in. A lot of people keep quarterbacks there. I have no shares of Bryce Young, so that's an easy one for me. Should I start Pitts or Ferguson at tight end this week? As much as it pains me to say it as a guy who was thinking that this was going to be the year for Pitts, my answer would be Ferguson. Abutski says, should I start Burrow, Stroud, or Howell this week? I think I'd probably start C.J. Stroud. Dusty, would you trade Tiny Tom for Bob Stauffer in an oil stream league? I know Tom is probably healthy, but certainly lacks the upside. We're in a spot where we want Tommy, and we have Tommy, but we also like to sprinkle in a little bit of Stauf if our friends at the Oilers would allow that. We think that would be a lot of fun. By the way, I was going to originally talk, lots of good questions. We do this every day, every single day. 11:45 to about noon is what we will do. I was going to talk about Justin Watson and KC. I had a couple game logs brought up here that I wanted to. These are possible stashes. There's KC's offense. I know, Patrick Mahomes, look at those funny throws. KC's offense is not that good right now. I think Watson is one of the guys that has at least some experience. He was targeted 4 times in week 1, 5 times in week 2, 3 times in week 3, and only targeted 1 time in week 4. I think that's a guy you possibly stash and see. I feel like Mahomes at some point is going to connect with somebody on a regular basis outside of Travis Kelce. So I don't mind in a deeper league, a stash of Justin Watson. This guy, I think, if you're in a 2-receiver league and then 2 flex league or 3 wide receiver league and a flex league, Braxton Berrios in Miami is very interesting. He was targeted 6 times in the loss to Buffalo, caught all 6 of them, had 17.4 PPR points, had a touchdown in that game. If Hill goes down at some point, and this is Berrios already kind of being in the mix, but with Waddle and the injuries that he's already been dealing with, I think Braxton Berrios is a pretty decent stash candidate for a few weeks the rest of the way this season. So there you go. That's a jam-packed episode of Fantasy Football 5. If I didn't get to any of your questions, just send them in again tomorrow because we're going to be doing it tomorrow. Also tomorrow, we are going to be live at the Century Casino Sports Bar and Lounge for Thursday Night Football. The entire EST crew, every single one of our blood relatives are going to be there as well, and a lot of our friends too. And hopefully we'll see you out there at the Century Casino on Fort Road for Thursday Night Football. That'll do it for the Fantasy Football 5 Oil Stream. Coming up here in just a matter of moments on Edmonton Sports Talk, we will transition you over to the Oil Stream on YouTube, and it's game day against the Calgary Flames, so we got lots to discuss.